Universalist ritual of homecoming and gathering of water at the end of summer is a symbolic reminder that as we look ahead to the beginning of a new church year, we gather as one body, seeking to renew our covenantal commitments. We gather to remind ourselves of the home we share and a home that we come back to, whether after a long or short absence. A home that we welcome all to make their own, a home of faith, hope, and love. These symbols may call to mind light summer showers, dewy mornings, misty evenings, or thunderstorms. They call to moments at ocean sides, lake sides, pool sides, river sides, bird baths, or kitchen sinks, and who we were with while there, or even if we were alone. We may have found ourselves in the presence of water during a moment of grief, or birth, or rebirth, or in a mundane place where sacredness is palpable. Did the water's unprovoked resiliency, serenity, or its waxing and waning tides inspire you? Did you feel the interdependent web of all existence coming alive in those moments? Perhaps the ties to spiritual companions throughout the world became clearer. Water moves through the whole ecosystems, nurturing and transforming life as it moves. It rises from the ocean in evaporation, forming clouds in the sky and blown by the winds. It returns to the land in the form of rain or snow. This precipitation falls onto the soil and gathers in streams and aquifers. In the midst of this journey, it also travels through the bodies of every living thing: insects, birds, mammals, fish, and humans. All water is connected and connects all of life as a species on a planet where life began in the oceans. Mammals who float in amniotic fluid as we are ready for birth, and beings whose cells are 70% water also rises up into the stems of plants and trunks of trees. None of the water is isolated from the rest. Even our own bodies are part of the watershed. The water goes back to the air or the earth and continues in streams and rivers on its way to the ocean. And the cycle continues, round and round. Even if we get water from our kitchen tap, that water has been around the world on its journey. From a physical perspective, humans are water, and by understanding the fact that we are essentially water is the key to uncovering the mysteries of the universe. You may have had the gift of a momentary spiritual epiphany, or some may have had a growing awareness of how this very water is like strands of the interdependent web, and how the web is us and everything. Throughout time, all cultures have revered water's life-giving properties. Tibetan shamans believe that the forces of nature are alive and that spirits reside in the waterfalls and rivers. In India, the Ganges River runs for over 1,500 miles from the Himalayas to the Bay of Bengal, and it's believed that washing in these waters purifies the recipients of all sins. The Japanese brought offerings to the rain god Kawakami each year. Ancient Egyptians revered the Nile as a source of fertility and abundance, believing that death involved the soul's journey across the river Styx. In the Christian scriptures, the book of Genesis tells the story of creation, beginning when the Spirit of God moved over the face of the waters. And after that, story after story about water is recounted throughout the Old Testament, from Noah and his ark with the destruction of the world by water, to Moses striking the rock, producing water in the desert, saving the lives of the Hebrews, to the parting of the Red Sea that allowed their escape to freedom from the wicked Pharaoh, and the drowning of his army as they continued their pursuit after them. The spiritual significance and the potential of water as the source of life continues over into the New Testament with the baptism of Jesus at the hands of John the Baptist, and the first miracle attributed to Jesus with the transformation of water into wine. As Unitarian Universalists, it is my supposition that collectively we recognize and honor the significant place that water holds in our lives. Otherwise, this ritual of gathering water would not continue to be celebrated year after year. But just as water scatters into rain and streams and clouds and springs and ponds and puddles, and yet flows together again and again, one great planetary ocean, we too are both separate and together. Just as water equalizes our origins, no drop of water is superior to any other, because it all comes from the same source. Therefore, it is indeed a blessed day as this community of faith meets once again to mark the beginning of our work together, to uplift the gathering and blending of hopes that you bring to and for this congregation in this coming year. Unitarian Universalism is not bound by any dogma or creed, which allows us to remain open to continuous revelations, both through personal experience and through scientific discovery. Water is our life force. It covers most of the surface of our planet and is so essential to our survival that while we can live without food for a week, for weeks, we can only survive for a few days without the precious elixir of water. It can be a source of beauty and great awe, as well as a destructive source of fear, as we often witness in the wake of tornadoes, hurricanes, and other water-related disasters around the globe. As we recall the monsoon rains that our Unitarian Universalist partners in the Philippines and India know, or the rivers and valleys of Transylvania, or Lake Victoria to Unitarian Universalists in Kenya and Uganda, and the flooding in the Texas Hill Country. What brings these companions like us to the water? What does the water bring to them like us? We have some Western myths that have given us Neptune and Poseidon reigning over the oceans, Venus and Aphrodite rising from the sea, and thousands of nymphs and sprites that allegedly rule over rivers, creeks, springs, and fountains. All these traditions affirm water as life-giving and restorative. From the cleansing power of waterfalls, rivers, oceans, fountains, and our own tears, from baptismal fonts to the healing pools of hot springs and natural grottos, to the sacred water of Lourdes in France, the Dead Sea in Israel, the Long Island Sound to the backyard bird bath and the kitchen faucet. Water is important. It also holds a significant place in our lives where people still suffer the aftermath of flooding across the country. However, with all of water's power and beauty, it also possesses a mystical and spiritual dimension. It's connected to ancient powers that have existed from the beginning of time. We're always unrelentingly called to engage with our surroundings, our own assumptions, our own foundations, and be willing to adjust and learn to respond creatively and with integrity. Like underground springs that warm and find their way to the surface, we, Unitarian Universalists, called by our sixth principle, bubble up and flow out into the borders and thresholds of diverse communities, answering the call to support peace, liberty, and justice for all. However, we continue to struggle with issues of oppression and racism that are embedded in our lives and within our institutions. But we were early embracers of feminism and of reimagining the role of women in our congregations. Moreover, we have engaged with the expanding definitions and expressions of sexuality and gender. Therefore, on this Water Communion Day, as you reflect on the water that you have been present to, I call on your understanding, knowing that water is the human equalizer, to remember those who have no clean water or safe water to drink. We must not allow our perceptions regarding our place within the global presence to distance us from harsh realities. We must remain open to learning the concept like goodness, truth, and beauty have different expressions depending on one's culture and experience, and understand that the source and spirit of life is known by many names and remains nameless in mystery. Most Americans tend to think of a, quote, water crisis as something that happens in very dry places, such as Africa and the Middle East. But the truth is that almost the entire western half of the United States is historically a very dry place, and 2/3 of humanity live in water-stressed areas. Some of the largest lakes and rivers on the globe are being depleted at a very frightening pace. Moreover, according to one government report, by the year 2030, the global need for water will exceed the global supply of water by 40%. Texas is facing a potential water shortage due to a combination of factors, including a growing population, outdated infrastructure, and climate change impacts like increased drought frequency and intensity. The Texas Water Development Board projects that water demand could outpace supply by 2070, with some area facing shortages even sooner. Meanwhile, according to the latest dates from the U.S. Drought Monitor, recent heavy rainfall has led to a significant improvement in drought conditions, and the San Antonio metro area is now considered drought-free. However, it's one thing to face water shortages, but another to face limited access to water. As a community of faith, in a living tradition that changes growth within the changing world around us, we cannot become complacent, resting on past accomplishments. Within the endless waterfalls of spiritual learning and transformation, waiting to fill us up and spill over into the larger world, it's crucial in our justice work to educate communities on responsible water usage, repairing water systems, promoting water-efficient technologies, addressing pollution, and protecting natural water sources like wetlands. Collectively, as a congregation, let us be strong like the water and attack the hard issues. The challenge is to keep the creative energy flowing, making sure that we don't become polarized and allow today's innovation to become tomorrow's entrenched tradition. After all, we are part of a living tradition. From my heart to yours, may it be so. Please stand as you are willing and able, and join in singing hymn number 100, Peace Like a River. We're singing numbers 1, 2, 3, and 6.